Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning for our American friends. My name is Andrea Rossi, and I'm at Cross Ideas, and I'm just introducing today's webinar. It's here with me in their Düsseldorf office, György Pasztelyák, head of user access management at E.ON Global Commodities, and he will take us through their experience with implementation of what they call user access management system, and of course, which has done been with us at Cross Ideas. Before getting started, the usual question: please let us know if you feel us properly, so you can say yes or no in the question box, which you can find in the GoToMeeting control panel. So I'm just waiting for the first one to say something. Question box again. No one is saying anything. Can you hear us? Now the question is, are they hearing us? Okay, let's give it a try. Great. Finally, we got the first confirmation of good signal, so we're good to go. And let me hand over to Yuri, which is here in their Düsseldorf office, and he will take through this agenda. So he will personally click on the down button, and we will reconvene at the end for any questions that might come up. Thank you, and have a good webinar.
Thank you, Andrea. And good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the webinar on the E.ON Global Commodities SE journey on user access management. Before we jump into the journey itself, first, for all those who have not been in Düsseldorf before, the nice reddish building is our headquarters right at the heart of Düsseldorf, very close to the River Rhine. I'm quite sure that a lot of you have already heard of E.ON being Germany's largest privately owned energy utility company. E.ON Global Commodities and its predecessor, E.ON Energy Trading, was created back in 2008, carving out the energy commodity trading activities out of the value chain of the regional units spread across Europe. We started with about 800 employees at our Düsseldorf headquarters. And there's one aspect that I would like to mention, because it will cast a light on why we have chosen the user access management activities to be conducted in the way that we are conducting them, and that's the way of integrating the various businesses. We have, in 2007 and 2008, adopted a so-called lift and shift approach, which means we carved out activities, systems, and processes out of the regional units and simply transported them to Düsseldorf, made sure that everything worked in a certain way, but no particular emphasis was being put on harmonizing or even thinking of making processes more effective and efficient. Currently, E.ON Global Commodities trades out of its headquarters in Düsseldorf. Apart from that, we have teams sitting in Sweden, in the UK, in France, in Italy, and in Eastern Europe. And on top of that, we are currently in the phase of stretching out to North America, the Middle East, and to Asia by opening small trading shops, offices in Singapore, Dubai, and Chicago. The reason I mentioned this lift and shift approach is important because in 2009 and 2010, we of course, apart from seeing and understanding that our partly disparate and unharmonized processes lead to inefficiencies, we also discovered that by connecting the systems, the incoming systems from the regional units back in 2008, has led to a multitude and a high level of complexity in the systems landscape without particularly paying attention to harmonizing the way user access or access management was done. And this was one of the key drivers. We wanted to be able to have one singular monolithic approach to managing user access, but what we had, on the other hand, was this disparate landscape of applications. We are talking about roughly 150 applications that, from a risk point of view, are interesting. A large proportion of them sitting in front office where trading is happening, but back office activities, as in downstream processes, and risk activities are to be mentioned here as well. And there's one important thing which goes back to the German legal system and the German commercial code, which is, of course, this is not only in Germany, but this was an important aspect. You always need to ensure the correctness of your financial figures, of your financial reporting. And one way of doing so is always knowing who has access to your applications. So apart from legal requirements, we felt, external legal requirements, we felt it important to have one approach to two fundamental capabilities, and that's record the granting, the revoking, the amending of access rights to all applications in scope in E.ON Global Commodities, or the predecessor, which was E.ON Energy Trading. And the second thing, which is a very close tie to the internal control system, is the ability to control, to monitor whether the control processes, and the controls embedded in the processes are working effectively and efficiently at all times. Now, this sounds like, needless to say, easy thing, piece of cake, let's do it. But the let's do it was actually the interesting thing, because, of course, we started to phrase not only benefits, but in a way, expectations and requirements. And we grouped them in four groups here. One was the harmonization and standardization of all processes that are somehow connected to basically user access management. This starts with things like fundamental HR processes, starter, mover, lever, rejoiner process, goes down to the ordering standard ordering processes across the company, but includes the provisioning as well. On the second, of course, one of the key aspects, the control, or the ability to control users, who is an active user, inactive user, who is actually, from an employee point of view, part of the company. But on top of that, also the roles and privileges in target applications. This was important, especially because of this lift and shift approach that I mentioned before. There was no unified approach or harmonized approach in terms of how should this company deal with roles and privileges and users. There were many ways, many different ways, due to the fact that until 2008, 2009, every regional unit used to do their business in their own way. But now we were merged into one legal entity, and we had to find one way of doing this. Another important requirement was the ability to control costs. We deliberately put cost reduction on the slide, but the first step towards reduction is, of course, is transparency. With roughly 150 applications in scope from a risk point of view, in scope for user access management, and at the current point in time, 1,300 employees, 1,300 users, you can imagine that one, tracking license cost, managing license costs and reducing them over time is quite of an effort. And the fourth aspect, which is, I believe, one of the key drivers, or was and still is, one of the key drivers is segregation of duties. In changing times, when you're changing your organizational setup, you are changing your processes, segregation of duties sometimes appears to be a necessary evil, but a lot, probably this has to do with the way mankind thinks. It's often deprioritized. But in this case, we said we also want to use user access management to be on top of this issue, to always know what is the framework of segregation of duties within this company, and always be able to put on display that we are not only transparent, but we are in control of what we're doing. This is basically the pack that we started with late 2011, must have been around November, if I recall correctly. By the way, the project that we kicked off ran across the entire year 2012. We called it CAR, as the car that you're driving, but the acronym stands for Central Access Repository. And currently we're in the phase 2 of this project. So apart from defining the primary set of requirements, we also thought about what are actually the prerequisites for user access management, not as a project, but as an operational task, as something that you would want to make your everyday work, part of your everyday work. What do you need? And of course, it starts with a IT solution. You need a system in place that enables and helps you in doing so. But the second thing, which again was quite of a challenge, and that was what we call the HR data cleanup. E.ON currently has roughly 80,000 employees, out of which about 36,000 work in Germany. All the rest spread across Europe, and some spread across the world. Now, E.ON has one central repository database for HR identity management, and we have chosen this central repository for being the single source of truth for what we were going to be using for our user access management. But for that, we had to make both the repository, but also the HR processes filling the repository, a true and fair single point or single source of truth. Simply saying, HR processes are the basis of whatever we're doing, and there can only be one single source of truth. The third part was around processes, and in here on the slide we are mentioning starter, mover, and lever, picking out one of the most prominent processes, but keeping in mind that user access management is not a satellite process, is not something that you do on top. It needs to span across the entire organization. But if that is true, you have to connect it to all, basically all processes that are touched by or driven by people, and that's basically all front-to-end processes in a company like ours, which doesn't really produce anything. We have transactional processes in place from front office until the back end, where you would find financial reporting. But we had to we had to connect user access management processes across the entire process landscape. And the fourth thing is probably the area where we had the most sort of fundamental or conceptual discussions, and that's who actually owns user access management in an organization. Should it be close to the chief financial officer because it's in the end about financials? Is it close to risk? Is it an HR process fundamentally? Should it be like a staff function close to the CEO? The decision in this organization was made to be very close to the chief information officer, because the idea was that although we are not only implementing a IT solution, because of the complexity in the systems landscape, there needs to be a thorough understanding of everybody who works in user access management with regards to what can be done and how can it be done when applications need to be adjusted in order to comply with user access management requirements. And therefore, we started with all the operational work after the project has been finalized at the beginning of November 2012 with the handover into the operational team, which currently resides in the CIO area. Talking of the IT solution, of course, one of the first questions was, are we going to build this solution ourselves, or are we going to ask for some support? Interestingly enough, we had some feedback from inside the organization. Why do we really need an external vendor? Why don't we build a huge Excel database, if you will, ourselves? Why don't we do the whole thing on our own? This already indicates the belief of our colleagues that for one, something needs to be done, but for two, we can do it ourselves. But we managed to, in the end, convince everyone that in this case we really need the most professional support that you can get. And so we started with an initial analysis by compiling our set of requirements, and of course a set design for a proof of concept which we wanted to conduct. We also, as a next step, did what we called market analysis, but in the end we sent out requests for information to roughly 18-20 vendors that we had identified as being potentially capable of entering a partnership, a longer term partnership, since we did not only want to buy a solution. In the end, without wanting to read through the entire set of slides, we ended up with two vendors who we then invited to participate in the proof of concept phase. And in this proof of concept phase with the two vendors, we ran through 6 use cases for the overall user access management. And in the end came up with basically the guys that are sitting next to us, to us and to me now, cross ideas. My background is pure economics. My IT background is, I feel like an end user. So for me, being the head of user access management, in this case, the lesser important thing or lesser priority was the pure technology side, which I believed whoever was part of the best, say, 20 or 6 or 2 in the market would be capable of delivering. But our expectation was that the vendor and the system would have to be able to follow us and our process-based approach. When doing user access management, we have chosen the model that whatever risk arises when we do business, and therefore risk needs to be controlled, that risk needs to be associated with a process, be it in business, be it in front office, being it back office risk, or being it in IT. It needs to go back to the process itself. And Cross Ideas came out to be the one-to-one fit for a vendor who could entirely design the inner logic of the user access management solution based on our process model and our process demands. This was prime key. The second point was, of course, being a European company, we did not have to put a lot of effort into explaining the regulatory background and the regulatory requirements. And the third point was, right from the beginning, we felt Cross Ideas was very close to doing a project together, a long-term project together with us, instead of just selling a product. So since Andrea is sitting next to me, I would like to stop praising Cross Ideas now, but they did an extremely good job in fulfilling our requirements. Like I mentioned before, what we did was a initial phase of the project, which we called CAR Phase 1, which was basically around understanding the risk. We call this the detective phase. Currently, our setup, our IDEAS user access management tool, is able to detect violations, is able to detect if a employee appears to have access to an application, but for example has left the company maybe 1 or 2 weeks or 1 or 2 months ago, or simply has not left the company but has changed into a different department than before. For this, we have implemented a business rules framework, which IDEAS can check every role of every role in the connected applications against. In the phase 2, which we are currently running, we have included an additional 9 applications which we're currently connecting to IDEAS, and are basically preparing for the next phase, which is going to be kicked off in 2014. And that's to build a more preventive system, which enables us to not detect that something has happened, but prevent it from happening, which means including a user access or access request process implementation into the UAM tool, but also builds the bridge to provisioning the access into the applications. Talking a little bit about the logical architecture, IDEAS, on the slide below, you can see basically the applications that are currently connected. We are feeding IDEAS with HR data from the group-wide identity database. And IDEAS is basically checking users and roles versus the business rules model that we have built into the application. And currently we have a bi-weekly reporting process into management, line management, so that people working in EGC start to understand and to learn basically what their employees, what their team members can do in applications, not necessarily what they are doing, but what they can do. Maybe a little bit of wrap up. Our most important feature, what we believe is a key benefit, is the basically real-time, close to real-time detection of access risks. We currently have a download after 2100 in the evening, or upload into IDEAS from the connected applications. Every morning we can basically track the movement in users, and which of course happens a lot lesser basically the change in roles. As we're in a fairly dynamic environment, we do have some front office trading applications where we have some, I'd say, significant changes over time in both the volume of users, but also the roles that are being given. And the second thing is, based on this close to real-time detection of risks, the ability to react in a very fast and efficient way once a risk or a violation has been detected. This is basically also the bridge into the future. Today, we can react in a very quick way. In the future, we want to prevent things from happening, but basically, what we can do now is whenever someone asks, "Can you give me a status of this or that system?" It can be done within 24 hours, both on the users and the role levels. And one aspect which was important because the overall landscape of the E.ON Group is changing, we have just merged an entire legal unit, the former Ruhrgas, into the E.ON Global Commodities framework, meaning additional 500 users, bringing along with them about 30 additional applications. IDEAS and the current setup of user access management is fully capable of absorbing a change of this magnitude. A few words on, well, we call it supportive and recommendations, but you would probably sum it up in terms of positives and negatives. We had very good support from top management, and therefore also very good business representation. And we had very good support from the market, including Cross Ideas, who very early jumped on supporting us with our ideas. And also something that we would always recommend based on our own experience is to build your own segregation of duties model, which we call business rules, a top-down approach, basically defining what kind of roles can never be combined to be given to one individual user. On the downside, things that we've learned, the decision to probably place user access management in a operational unit, which is close to the chief information officer, takes away the momentum from user access management being understood as a business function. The second thing is project time is always too short. This is a no-brainer, but in a very compliance-driven project, this is probably even more important. You need to finalize on time, and therefore both the staffing itself, resources itself, but internal knowledge on the security models of applications that you want to connect is essential, is key. The challenges ahead. As I said, we are about to connect 9 additional applications this year. There's going to be additional or further changes around the organizational setup in E.ON Global Commodities. The world is changing. The real challenge ahead is to stay on track, to not let user access management be, again, something that is byway or that is done on top of real business. User access management is part of everyday's business, and we need to do real good change management in order to ensure that there is a company-wide understanding for all our efforts. Thank you very much for listening. This was a very rough rodeo ride through, basically, for us now, almost 2 years of projects around user access management. And thanks for listening, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, thanks, György, for this. Even for me, which I know the story, it's always, yeah, really, it's always interesting to hear it again, the customer perspective. So Let us open the session, and there is a first question which is coming up, which is, and probably we have gone through the slides, but that wasn't explained sufficiently. What type of applications have you connected so far? So I think it reflects to the names of it reflect the name of the application that we are connected or you are connecting.
Okay. Basically, what we have connected in 2012 were 7 front office trading applications. Some of you who are in energy commodity trading will know OpenLinks product Endure. We connected GMS, Zynet, and there is another application called Trayport, which is widely known for market data and for brokers, but also a in-house built risk tool called RMDS. In the course of this year, we are about to connect 4 applications more in the dispatch area. For everybody who is in energy and power utilities knows that apart from trading energy commodities, the dispatch area is probably the most down to earth, and therefore is a key risk focus area. Dispatch applications like Daisy H or Neon, or another one which is called Caltech. And on the other hand, we are connecting formerly Ruhrgas owned applications. Ruhrgas was the gas trading business of the E.ON Group, which has been merged into E.ON Global Commodities. There we have less fast-paced trading kind of transactions. It's more on the long-term contracts, complex contracts running maybe 15 to 20 years, supply contracts that Ruhrgas has concluded over the years across Europe.
Okay, let's see if there are more questions. I know that everyone is shy, so yeah, I don't see any more questions coming. So this webinar is being recorded, so we're going to post it and make it available for the attendees and the registrants. So Yuri, thanks again for your great presentation. I think it's good to close the presentation just as we started. And again, thanks you for attending. Have a good afternoon for the European-based people, and have a good morning for the Americans. And talk to you in the next webinar. Thank you. Bye bye.